Die episode is aan de Trabahan met de Trabahanis met een Einbach om de Jäger. And we must not fail. Hail! Hail! Sing!
Ever wondered what life was like for the legendary stars of old Hollywood? Well, hold on to your popcorn because today we're diving into the wild world of 20 Hollywood icons who were known to have a few too many drinks, or maybe a lot too many.
What am I gonna do? You're gonna do exactly what I tell you. Tonight I'm sending Ruth a wire in your name, begging her to come back. Frank, you gotta straighten yourself out, be a decent guy like you used to be, or I'm going to the cops.
You can't go to the cops. You gotta give me a break.
Number 20, Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart, the man with the scar and the mystery. Depending on who you ask, that scar above his lip has a different origin story. Some say it came from a childhood brawl. Others claim it was from a punch while serving in the Navy. And then there's the tale of shrapnel during a battle. But if you ask his drinking buddies from back in the day, they'll swear it was from one of his many barroom scuffles in the speakeasies of New York during Prohibition. Picture this, young Bogart, a Broadway actor, drinking until he passed out at the bar, only to wake up swinging if anyone dared disturb his slumber. His late-night escapades got him booted from more than one production, but that didn't deter him. No, sir. Bogart had his sights set on Hollywood, and nothing was going to stand in his way.
Them up and bringing them in is by staying as far away as possible from you and the police because you'd only gum up the works. You getting this all right, son, or am I going too fast for you?
So he packed his bags and headed west, landing in the infamous Garden of Allah, a den of debauchery where the booze flowed freely, and the party never stopped. It was the perfect playground for Bogey and his crew of merry drinkers, which included the likes of director John Huston, his flame Lauren Bacall, and even a young Frank Sinatra. In fact, it was Bogart who first assembled what would later become known as the Rat Pack. But Bogey wasn't just a drinker, he was also a darn fine actor.
Come on, kid. There's a 10 grand reward out for me. You'll never have another chance like this till you pick a winner in the Irish sweepstakes.
And despite his penchant for the bottle, he managed to carve out a legendary career on the silver screen, starring in classics like Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon. His gravelly voice and steely demeanor made him the epitome of cool, both on and off the screen.
Wouldn't you like someone to be in love with you?
Yes, Gabrielle, I would like someone in love with me.
Do you think I'm attractive?
There are better words than that for what you are.
Number 19, Tallulah Bankhead. Now let's talk about Tallulah Bankhead, the Southern belle turned Hollywood wild child. Born into privilege as the daughter of an Alabama congressman, Tallulah was destined for greatness. But instead of following the path of debutante balls and socialite gatherings, she had her sights set on the bright lights of Broadway. Leaving home at just 15, Tallulah found herself in the heart of New York City, taking up residence at the famed Algonquin Hotel. Little did she know, this decision would shape her future in more ways than one. You see, the Algonquin wasn't just any hotel. It was a hub of high society and hard-drinking intellectuals, home to the infamous Algonquin Round Table. Surrounded by the likes of Dorothy Parker, George S. Kaufman, and Robert Benchley, Tallulah quickly fell into the rhythm of the Round Table, where wit flowed as freely as the liquor. But Tallulah wasn't content with just witty banter. Oh no, she took her drinking to legendary levels. From Broadway to Hollywood, Tallulah's career soared, but so did her consumption of alcohol and other substances.
Bubbles.
She was known to down fifths of whiskey in record time, dabble in poppers, and even indulge in horse tranquilizers. But perhaps her most famous concoction was her special cocktail of Coca-Cola and spirits of ammonia. Talk about a dangerous mix. As the years passed, Tallulah's health began to deteriorate, but her appetite for destruction only grew stronger. In her final days, she was consuming over a quart of bourbon a day, alongside a cocktail of pills and cocaine. And true to form, her last words were as unforgettable as she was. Codeine, bourbon.
Wait a minute.
You never saw me dive, did you, Blaine?
You little devil, I like you this way.
You'll like me when you see me dive, Blaney. Look, I'll wear a little bathing costume, white. And I'll stand high up on a rock like this, and I'll dive.
Number 18, Spencer Tracy. Spencer Tracy may have been a Hollywood legend, but he wasn't exactly the life of the party when it came to drinking. In fact, he was known for being downright mean and violent when he was under the influence, and unfortunately, that was often. Despite being a 2-time Oscar winner and 9-time nominee, Tracy's personal life was marred by his struggles with alcohol. bar fights, police custody, and even waking up in a padded cell. These were just some of the consequences of his drinking escapades. And let's not forget his aversion to flying. Instead, he opted for cross-country train rides, where he'd pack his suitcase with enough booze to last the journey. Now, Tracy wasn't always drunk. He'd go through periods of sobriety, but when he fell off the wagon, he fell hard. Picture this: weeks holed up in a hotel room, sitting in the bathtub, doing nothing but drinking, not even getting up to use the bathroom. That's the extent of his alcohol-fueled isolation. Things got so bad that Fox Studio gave him an ultimatum: quit drinking or lose your job. His response? He walked out, went to the nearest bar, got smashed, and then returned to the studio to smash things up even more. Eventually, MGM took him under their wing, but they knew what they were dealing with. They had a whole team aptly named the Tracy Squad, whose sole purpose was to keep him in check. Every bar within a 25-mile radius had their number on speed dial. When called, an ambulance would swoop in, accompanied by a doctor and several security guards, to whisk Tracy away and sober him up somewhere out of the public eye. Number 17, W.C. Fields. W.C. Fields was a man of many talents, but perhaps none so notorious as his relationship with alcohol. Yet, despite his indulgences, he had a certain discipline about his drinking habits, famously quipping, "I have never imbibed while sleeping, and I drink nothing stronger than gin before breakfast."
Some fresh water. A towel, thank you. Never like to bathe in the same water twice.
Born William Claude Duncanfield above a bar in the era before Prohibition, Fields witnessed the dawn of the alcohol ban. He was so prepared for the dry times ahead that he stockpiled thousands of bottles of whiskey and gin in his attic. Even after Prohibition ended, he kept a substantial emergency stash at home, once telling Harpo Marx, "Never can be sure Prohibition won't come back, my boy." Legend has it that Fields had a unique method of discreetly enjoying his beloved gin martinis on set. He'd carry a vacuum flask filled with his preferred concoction, which he humorously referred to as his lemonade, or sometimes his pineapple juice. However, there's one memorable incident where a prankster swapped his gin for actual lemonade. Fields, none too pleased, famously exclaimed, "Who put lemonade in my lemonade?"
And another thing, you're always squawking about something. If it isn't a steak, it's something else.
I didn't squawk about the steak there. I merely said I didn't see that old horse that used to be tethered outside here.
Number 16, Clara Bow. Let's talk about Clara Bow, the OG it girl of Hollywood's golden age. Now, when it comes to classic stars, separating fact from fiction can be as tricky as navigating a maze blindfolded. Clara's life was a whirlwind of rumors, some true, some not so much. Take, for example, the outrageous article in the Coastal Times that painted her as the epitome of scandal. It was like they took every tabloid cliche and threw it at her. Then there's Kenneth Anger's infamous Hollywood Babylon, where he claimed Clara was having post-game parties with the entire USC football team. Wild, right? But here's the thing. While some stories were pure hogwash, Clara wasn't exactly a saint either. She practically defined the flapper lifestyle, living fast and loud. Bars? Check. Affairs? You betcha. And she didn't shy away from flaunting it on screen either. One of the more believable tales involves a party thrown by a Paramount bigwig, B.P. Schulberg, to honor a newly appointed judge. Clara, already 3 sheets to the wind upon arrival, decided to give the judge a welcome he wouldn't forget, and probably regret. Picture this: Clara locking lips with the judge like she's auditioning for a role in a steamy romance, right in front of his wife. And just when you thought it couldn't get crazier, she drags him onto the dance floor, leaving the poor man's head spinning faster than a Hollywood plot twist. Needless to say, studio suits had to step in and escort her out before things got even more out of hand. Number 15, Peter O'Toole. You see, for every Spencer Tracy, the brooding alcoholic, there's a Peter O'Toole, the whimsical, fun-loving drunk, here to balance things out. Picture this: O'Toole, the serious dramatic actor, was reportedly an absolute riot off set.
I'm not an actor, I'm a movie star!
My dear young lady, unlike you, I have not spent my life cruising from discotheque to discotheque with my arse hanging out of a French cut bathing suit.
Well, you're missing all the fun, aren't you?
I suspect you're right.
This is for ladies only.
And so is this, ma'am, but every now and again I have to run a little water through it.
Back in his youth, he lived on a barge that, get this, sank because there were too many people partying on it during one of his epic shindigs. And get this, when it was time for his wedding reception, forget about a stuffy affair, he and his wife Cian opted for a full-on pub crawl. Oh, and when Cian was giving birth to their first child, guess who finally sauntered in, singing with a chorus of tipsy actors? You guessed it, our man Peter. But wait, there's more. O'Toole had a knack for starting a night of drinking, blacking out, and waking up in the most unexpected places. I'm talking Mexico, or even in a stranger's apartment with none other than Michael Caine. And get this, when a pub threatened to close its doors on him, what did O'Toole do?
Disgusting phrase. When did you hear of anyone choking on someone else's vomit?
He bought the pub. Sure, he came back the next day to rip up the check, but legend had it he remained tight with the owner until the very end. Speaking of endings, when he showed up sloshed to the wrong funeral for his old pal, well, that's peak O'Toole right there. Now let's talk about the stuff of legend.
So long as men can breathe and eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
The time he accidentally chopped off the tip of his finger and, like any good drinking buddy, used his brandy to sterilize it before reattaching the digit himself. Oh, and did I mention he downed the brandy afterward? Classic Peter. But here's the kicker. Weeks later, when his finger was still aching, he unwrapped it to find he'd put it back on backwards. Now that's what I call dedication to the party, folks. Number 14. Dennis Price. Picture this, an aristocrat Brit with charm and looks to spare, destined for the heights of fame. That was Dennis Price. He strutted across stages and later graced the silver screen in iconic comedies like Kind Hearts and Coronets, alongside legends like Alec Guinness and James Mason.
Hello, old boy. Have a drink. No, thank you. Never during the day. Don't mind if I do. Keep out the cold. I was about to remark on the warmth of the day. Just a joke, old boy.
But fame has a flip side, and for Price, it came with a hefty tab of troubles. Amidst a failing marriage and the pressure of hiding his homosexuality, Price's life took a dark turn. In 1954, he hit rock bottom, quite literally, with his head in the oven, attempting to end it all.
There's the respect that makes calamity. So long life!
Thankfully, a cleaning lady dashed in like a hero in the nick of time, saving him from the brink. But that was just the beginning of Price's downward spiral. Alcohol became his crutch, his constant companion through thick and thin. His days were a blur of Guinness and Scotch, starting with a crate at breakfast and ending with, well, another crate probably. Co-stars whispered tales of his perpetual tipsiness, how he'd stroll onto sets with a bag full of booze like it was groceries. His decline was as tragic as it was public. Once suave and charming, Price became a shell of his former self.
Stand up. Huh? I said stand up. I will not tolerate hearing my mother's name on your coarse tongue.
His once handsome looks weathered by his battle with the bottle. And in a sad twist of fate, he met not his end on stage or screen, but in the quiet grip of liver cirrhosis. Number 13. Richard Burton. Richard Burton, the man, the myth, the legend, and quite possibly the closest we've come to a real-life drunk all the time scenario. Now let's be clear, saying someone sloshed 24/7 is a bit of an exaggeration. But with Burton, well, let's just say he was a regular at the watering hole. From the tender age of 12, Burton was knocking back the drinks, and he didn't stop for anything or anyone, not even the stern warnings of his doctors or the turbulence of his personal life.
The question of being an alcoholic, I'm not quite sure that I am one, but if I'm not one, I'm very near. Alcoholism is a dreadful disease, and my sympathy for, I believe there are something like 15 million Americans alone who are alcoholics.
When he left this world at 58, his body was a testament to a lifetime of alcohol abuse. You might know Burton for his Shakespearean performances or his iconic roles alongside Peter O'Toole.
I will what?
On your knees.
You dare ask the proconsul of Rome?
I asked it of Julius Caesar. I demand it of you.
And who could forget his fiery chemistry with Elizabeth Taylor, both on and off the screen? When they were together, their day started with a morning tipple at 7 a.m., Burton with his beer, Taylor a bit more restrained. But here's where it gets interesting. Burton's drinking habits were the stuff of legend. A case of beer before lunch? Check. Hard liquor as the day wore on? Double check. In fact, during the filming of The Night of the Iguana, he insisted on having not one but two private bars, one at the top of the stairs and another at the bottom. Now that's commitment.
She's not only trying to get me fired, she's also trying to pin on me a rape charge, a charge of statutory rape.
Sadly, Burton's story doesn't have a happy ending. In 1984, he left this world suddenly, taken by a cerebral hemorrhage. By then, his body had paid the price. His kidneys were swollen beyond belief, and his spine was practically pickled in alcohol. Number 12, Barbara Payton. Now here's a Hollywood tale that's as tragic as it is cautionary. Meet Barbara Payton, a bright-eyed starlet who soared to fame before crashing and burning in a haze of alcohol and drugs, leaving behind a life cut short at just 39 years old. Barbara burst onto the scene in the late 1940s, a fresh-faced 20-year-old with dreams of silver screen stardom.
I'm sorry about what happened.
My brother, my only brother, they killed him.
You mean he's cold?
And boy, did she achieve it. In no time, she was rubbing elbows with the elite, earning herself the title of Queen of the Nightclubs and partying with the likes of Howard Hughes, Bob Hope, and even notorious mobster Mickey Cohen. She landed roles in some big pictures, too. Think Trapped, Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye, and Only the Valiant. But here's the twist. The glitz and glamour of Hollywood soon took a backseat to Barbara's wild lifestyle. It wasn't long before her personal demons, fueled by booze and tumultuous relationships, took center stage.
So what's wrong with dancing for a living? What's wrong with that kind of life? Is beating the brains out of some stupid slob in the ring any better? No, I don't dance with anyone anymore. Why? Because you bought all the tickets when you married me. I hope you're happy.
Her most infamous entanglement? A love triangle straight out of a noir film involving herself, Frank Attone, and Tom Neal. But as the drama unfolded on and off the screen, Barbara's life spiraled into chaos. She ended up living in a Skid Row apartment, her once promising career a distant memory. In her memoir, I Am Not Ashamed.
Like that on me?
No, it's pinned already.
What?
The stuff he used is in your room.
Barbara bears it all, the highs, the lows, and a bottle of rosé that seemed to always be by her side. It's a raw, unfiltered account of a woman who soared to the heights of fame only to crash and burn. And tragically, Barbara's story came to an early end, claimed by the very vices that had consumed her. Alcohol-induced heart and kidney disease sealing her fate at just 39 years old. Number 11, Paul Lynde. I remember Paul Lynde, the witty Uncle Arthur from Bewitched, the iconic center square of Hollywood squares, and a trailblazer for the LGBTQ+ community in post-war America. But behind the laughter and the applause, there was a darker side to Paul's story, one marked by his struggles with alcohol and the demons it unleashed. Paul was a fixture in Hollywood's underground gay bars, where he reveled in the company of fellow socialites. But when the drink started flowing, so did his troubles. You see, alcohol had a way of turning Paul's sharp wit into a weapon, his humor taking a sharp turn from playful to downright caustic. He became notorious for his knack of zeroing in on people's vulnerabilities, often leaving a trail of hurt feelings and crossed-off invitation lists in his wake. As the years went by, Paul's penchant for speaking his mind, fueled by alcohol, only intensified. He found himself in increasingly precarious situations, from being kicked out of bars to engaging in drunken altercations with law enforcement. Perhaps most shocking were his outbursts of racial slurs during his alma mater's homecoming weekend, a stark reminder of the ugly side of alcohol-fueled behavior. But amidst the chaos, Paul never lost his irreverent sense of humor. Legend has it that during a drunken police chase that culminated in a DUI, Paul leaned out the window and, in his unmistakable lisp, ordered a double cheeseburger and a chocolate shake, a final act of defiance in the face of his own downfall. Tragically, Paul's story came to an untimely end at just 56 years old, his heart giving out under the strain of years of alcohol abuse. Number 10, Robert Mitchum. If Hollywood had an anti-hero, it would undoubtedly be Robert Mitchum. He wasn't your typical leading man. Instead, he was a brooding force, infamous for leaving chaos in the wake of his drunken escapades. Mitchum's off-screen exploits were legendary, so much so that he once found himself behind bars after falling prey to a police sting targeting Hollywood's notorious party animals. Mitchum's tales of debauchery are the stuff of Hollywood legend. Take, for instance, the filming of Not as a Stranger, where Mitchum, alongside Frank Sinatra, Broderick Crawford, and Lee Marvin, turned the set into what he described as not so much a cast as it was a brewery. Morning drinks led to all-night parties complete with hotel room destruction, wig-eating antics, and even balcony tossings, a far cry from your typical Hollywood soiree. But perhaps the most memorable incident occurred during the film of His Kind of a Woman. In a scene where Mitchum's character is attacked by thugs, he let the alcohol get the best of him, forgetting the line between reality and make-believe. The result, a set-wide brawl that left everyone wondering if Mitchum was acting or just being himself. Yet, despite his antics, Mitchum's reputation preceded him. During the shooting of River of No Return, director Otto Preminger banned alcohol from the set. That is, until he discovered a young actor carrying a bottle of vodka. When questioned, the actor simply replied, "I'm just taking it to Mitchum." With a wry smile, Preminger let him pass, understanding that with Mitchum, anything goes. Number 9. Anne Margaret. Anne Margaret's legacy as one of Hollywood's original sex kittens is undeniable. But behind the glamorous facade lay a woman who knew how to have a good time, perhaps a little too well. From her early days as a Swedish import to her iconic role alongside Elvis Presley in Viva Las Vegas, Anne Margaret's off-screen escapades were as legendary as her on-screen performances.
I had a wonderful time with Betty Davis.
It must have been a masterclass, watching somebody like Betty Davis up close as you did because you played her daughter.
At one point, because it was my first film, I had no idea what was going on. I was just so happy if I would remember my lines.
Oh, Mama, life is wonderful, isn't it?
Yes, baby.
Her chemistry with Elvis was electric, both on and off the screen. Their affair during and after filming was the stuff of Hollywood gossip columns, marked by endless parties and relentless revelry. Yet behind the glitz and glamour, a darker truth emerged.
I had a thing with alcohol that I really don't talk about, but that's another thing that has made me who I am. I drank for 5 years, and then it stopped working for me, and I just stopped.
Anne Margaret's battle with alcoholism began to take its toll, starting with anxiety-induced drinking on the set of RPM. By 1971, she found herself trapped in the cycle of addiction, unable to distinguish between fantasy and reality. "I drink a fifth of scotch, pass out, wake up, drink some more, and pass out again," she confessed candidly. But as with many Hollywood stories, hers had a twist. In 1980, Anne Margaret made the brave decision to quit drinking for good.
I stopped in 1968, and I haven't had any alcohol since.
Embarking on a journey of recovery that would redefine her legacy. In her autobiography, My Story, she opened up about her struggles with addiction and her path to sobriety. And in a 1982 interview with Roger Ebert, she showed the world her newfound confidence, gracefully declining a cocktail with a sly wink and the words, "I don't drink, but I do like the hoochie coo." Number 8. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift's legacy as a method actor is etched in Hollywood history, but behind the scenes, he struggled with demons that often led him to the bottle. Known for his brooding intensity on screen, Clift's off-screen performance was marred by his battles with alcohol and his hidden homosexuality in an era of intolerance. Elizabeth Taylor, his co-star and close friend, was one of the few who knew his secret and stood by him through thick and thin. However, even her unwavering support couldn't save Clift from his tragic fate. After a dinner party at Taylor's, Clift's life took a devastating turn when he crashed his car in Benedict Canyon, forever altering his once handsome face. Clift's downward spiral into depression-fueled drinking earned him a reputation as an eager but sloppy drunk. His acting mentor, Robert Lewis, famously called it the longest suicide in Hollywood history. Despite his struggles, Clift continued to work, delivering memorable performances in films like The Misfits alongside Marilyn Monroe. Monroe, herself battling personal demons, recognized a kindred spirit in Clift, lamenting that he was in even worse shape than she was. Yet, Clift's talent shone through, earning him critical acclaim and accolades, including a Best Supporting Actor nomination for Judgment at Nuremberg. Tragically, Clift's self-destructive path caught up with him at the age of 45, when he succumbed to a heart attack brought on by years of substance abuse. Number 7. Richard Harris. Richard Harris, a titan of the stage and screen, was as renowned for his intense performances as he was for his tumultuous relationship with alcohol. Part of the notorious drinking circle that included Oliver Reed and Peter O'Toole, Harris's escapades were legendary, often teetering on the edge of chaos.
There was the two guys there were three of us legends for drinking, okay, and for having a rough, kind of a wild Rabelaisian life. One was Richard Burton, of course, Peter O'Toole, the great O'Toole, and Harris. So every single night we'd come off stage together, dash across the street, duck the taxis into the bar, and we'd be throwing back beers and beers, watching the time, making sure we got back on time for our cue, right?
Born in Ireland, Harris's penchant for trouble was evident from a young age. A reckless teenager, he once crashed his father's delivery truck into a bridge after a night at the pub, earning himself a colorful encounter with the police. His witty retort, "Sorry, officer, I'm just delivering this bridge to Limerick," showcasing his irreverent charm even in the face of trouble. As Harris found success on the London stage and later in Hollywood, his fame and wealth fueled his hedonistic lifestyle. Consuming staggering amounts of vodka daily became routine, with reports of him downing up to 2.5 bottles a day. His presence in the London drunk tank was as regular as clockwork, with bartenders lining up his usual 6 double vodkas without him needing to ask. His drunken escapades often bordered on the surreal. Found lying in the street during one bender, Harris famously quipped to a concerned policeman, "The world is spinning." When asked why he was lying in the street, his response was equally absurd, "I'm waiting for my house to go by."
I was in the Dorchester Hotel in London, and I was really drunk. I drank about a bottle of vodka, no, a brandy it was actually, right? And it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, I'll have some fun.
Despite his tumultuous personal life, Harris's professional reputation remained untarnished. Known for his intense performances in films like This Sporting Life and A Man Called Horse, he brought a raw, ferocious energy to the screen. Offset, however, he battled inner demons that sometimes manifested in manic joy or black rages. Harris tried to shield his children from the darker aspects of his personality, often presenting a facade of fun and adventure. His son Jared fondly remembers one Dublin trip that turned into a rollicking adventure, with his father's magnetic charisma attracting a traveling circus of companions. Reflecting on those moments, Jared remarked, "We kept booking flights back and missing them." Number 6. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn, the epitome of swashbuckling charm on screen, was equally notorious for his off-screen escapades, earning him a reputation as one of the original Hollywood hellraisers.
Oh, but you can't do this to me after all we've been through together. We fought the war together, built a railroad together, we ate, drank, slept, lived, and died together.
And now we're going to be in jail together. You in there and me out here.
His legendary exploits with alcohol and women, often accompanied by a doctor's bag filled with vodka, are the stuff of Hollywood legend.
Where is everything?
That is a question I've often asked myself. But the answer's really quite simple. I'm a man who loves beautiful things. Unfortunately, so do my creditors.
Flynn's adventures knew no bounds, from getting rum drunk with a young Fidel Castro to shutting down the Warner Lot Bar with his excessive drinking. He lived life to the fullest. His daily medicine consisted of 2/5 of vodka, which he carried with him in a doctor's bag to work every day. To mask the scent of alcohol, he'd switch from whiskey to morning Bloody Marys or snack on vodka-injected oranges throughout the day. His Malibu bachelor pad, aptly named Cirrhosis by the Sea, was a den of drunken excess and sexual debauchery shared with fellow actor David Niven. But as the nickname ominously suggested, Flynn's lifestyle would eventually catch up with him. At just 32 years old, Flynn received a grim prognosis from a doctor: change his lifestyle or face certain death within 5 years. Ignoring the warning, he continued his hedonistic ways, partying even harder. Despite surpassing the doctor's dire prediction by a full 13 years, Flynn's excessive lifestyle eventually took its toll. At the age of 50, the once dashing sex symbol succumbed to a heart attack induced by acute cirrhosis of the liver. Number 5. Frank Sinatra. The chairman of the board himself, Frank Sinatra, the man who crooned his way into our hearts but also knew his way around a bar like nobody else. Sinatra's love affair with alcohol was as legendary as his voice.
In other words, hold my hand. In other words, darling, kiss me.
Rooted in his upbringing in the smoky confines of his parents' speakeasy. From a young age, Frank was immersed in the world of bars and booze, serenading patrons for tips before he was even old enough to order a drink himself. As he rose to fame, his fondness for the bottle only grew stronger, fueled by his Rat Pack cronies and their nightly escapades. But amidst the glitz and glamour, there was one constant in Sinatra's life, his loyal companion, Jack Daniels. To Frank, Jack was more than just a drink. He was a trusted friend, a confidant, always there to take the edge off after a long day or a heated argument. Jack Daniels was Frank's constant companion, one observer noted, taken preferably in a glass tumbler with 2 fingers, 3 or 4 ice cubes, and just a splash of flat water. In fact, the mere sight of a Jack Daniels flag flying in Sinatra's Twin Palms compound was the signal that it was time to unwind and enjoy a drink. And when it came to performing, Frank never missed an opportunity to give a shout-out to his beloved bourbon. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jack Daniels," he would declare from the stage, "and it's the nectar of the gods." His endorsement was so powerful that it single-handedly boosted sales of Jack Daniels around the world. Even in death, Sinatra remained true to his favorite drink, buried with a bottle of Black Label in his pocket as a final tribute to his lifelong love affair with Jack. And to this day, there's a special blend of the stuff that bears his name, ensuring that the legend of the bourbon baritone lives on. Number 4. Orson Welles. Orson Welles, a name synonymous with genius, innovation, and unfortunately, a penchant for the bottle. But behind the towering figure of cinematic achievement lay a troubled relationship with alcohol that began long before he ever stepped onto the silver screen.
Some things can't be rushed. Good music and good wine. Paul Masson's Emerald Dry. A delicious white wine. Paul Masson wines taste so good because they're made with such care. What Paul Masson himself said nearly a century ago is still true today. We will sell no wine before it's time.
Welles's tumultuous journey with alcohol traces back to his father, a man whose own struggles with alcoholism cast a dark shadow over the family. It was this painful legacy that drove a young Orson to distance himself from his kin, harboring hopes that his father would one day sober up and they could reconcile. Sadly, that day never came, and Welles carried the weight of guilt for the rest of his days. Yet it was in the midst of his own battles with alcohol that Welles inadvertently left his mark on cocktail culture. While in Rome filming Black Magic, he stumbled upon a little-known concoction called the Negroni. Ever the showman, Welles sang its praises to a stateside newspaper declaring, "The bitters are good for your liver, the gin is bad for it, they balance each other out." His endorsement catapulted the Negroni into the spotlight, sparking a craze that swept across the nation. But as Welles's fame grew, so did his waistline. The once slender visionary ballooned to nearly 400 pounds, fueled by a nightly ritual of 2 rare steaks washed down with a pint of scotch. His indulgences didn't stop there. On set, he was notorious for drinking between takes, his behavior becoming increasingly erratic as the years wore on. In a cruel twist of fate, Welles found himself in the ironic role of alcohol pitchman, lending his voice and image to various liquor brands. It was a far cry from the young prodigy who once captivated the world with his visionary filmmaking. Number 3. Ethel Barrymore. The illustrious Barrymore clan, a family renowned for their dazzling talent and notorious penchant for indulgence. And nestled among these luminaries was Ethel Barrymore, hailed as the First Lady of the American theater, whose career spanned an impressive 6 decades. But behind the glitz and glamour lay a tumultuous battle with alcohol, a struggle all too familiar within the Barrymore dynasty. Ethel's journey to stardom began in the 1890s, where her captivating performances graced both Broadway and the West End stages.
What's the matter with you?
Tired out. Machinery run down, you know. If you get into any trouble, see, I've been a good friend to me.
Well, don't be in here long, Ma. I've got to get married, don't forget.
That's right.
Yet amidst the adulation and applause, she found herself grappling with the demon of alcohol, seeking solace in the bottle whenever life's troubles loomed large. In many ways, Ethel mirrored her brother John, whose own struggles with alcohol are the stuff of legend. Yet, unlike her brother, Ethel managed to wrestle control back from the clutches of addiction. In her 30s, she made the courageous decision to embrace sobriety, recognizing the poison that alcohol represented to her family. In her own words, Ethel declared, "No one in my family should drink because it's poison to us." And with that resolute determination, she reclaimed her life from the grip of addiction, embodying a spirit of resilience that would define her legacy for generations to come. Number 2. John Barrymore. The Barrymore name, a byword for both prodigious talent and tragic excess. John Barrymore, scion of the illustrious Barrymore acting dynasty, embodied this duality like no other. Renowned for his immense talent, yet better known for his tumultuous relationship with alcohol, John's life was a tumultuous journey through the highs of stardom and the depths of addiction. From a young age, John was drawn to the allure of the stage and the seductive embrace of alcohol. Some accounts suggest he began imbibing as early as 14, setting the stage for a lifelong struggle with addiction. Despite his early dalliance with drink, John's undeniable talent propelled him to the forefront of the theatrical world by the 1920s, earning him accolades as one of the industry's greatest luminaries.
From the newsreel and the press, evidently wants me to say something about my private life. Not realizing that the whole show might be pulled instantly. However, there is one element in it which is enchanting.
His transition to Hollywood brought both fame and fortune, but it also exacerbated his penchant for excess. Surrounded by a coterie of like-minded revelers, including Errol Flynn, W.C. Fields, and Anthony Quinn, John embraced a hedonistic lifestyle marked by alcohol-fueled revelry and debauchery. Together, they formed the infamous Bundy Drive Gang, whose exploits became the stuff of legend within Hollywood circles. Yet for all his charisma and talent, John's demons proved insurmountable. By the 1930s, his wild antics had earned him notoriety and resulted in being blacklisted from major studios. His tragic demise came in 1942, a victim of pneumonia and cirrhosis of the liver, the ravages of a life lived in the shadow of addiction. But the legacy of the Barrymore family's dual inheritance endured. John's children, Diana and John Jr., followed in their father's footsteps, succumbing to the siren call of alcoholism. Yet amidst the darkness, a beacon of hope emerged in the form of John's granddaughter, Drew Barrymore. Number 1. Oliver Reed. During the late 60s and early 70s, this English actor was one of the biggest box office draws in Britain. Renowned for his performances in films like The Trap, Oliver, and the Three Musketeers series, his persona off-screen wasn't as charming as those he played for the camera. He once confessed that he did not live in the world of sobriety. No truer words could have ever been spoken. Fellow actor and producer David Hemmings claimed that Reed could drink 20 pints of lager with a gin or creme de menthe chaser and still run a mile for a wager, and that he once drank 126 pints of beer in 24 hours and then performed a horizontal handstand on the bar. Known for wreaking havoc during his inebriated states, which included tomfoolery, violence, and infidelity, stories of his actions while intoxicated abound. In 1980, for instance, he went to a church for a christening so drunk that he swayed back and forth while standing, and at a reception held later, he held the baby in his arms and stumbled up and down the room pretending to play rugby with the child as the ball. Before he had completed the shooting of his final film Gladiator, he went to a pub one night and drank 8 bottles of beer, 3 bottles of rum, and a few shots of whiskey before finally suffering a heart attack and dying shortly thereafter. And that's a wrap on our journey through the boozy tales of Hollywood's elite. If you enjoyed diving into the scandalous lives of these iconic stars, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more juicy content, and share with your fellow film aficionados. Until next time, stay tuned.